There's a story most people never hear about monks who lived with almost nothing and built something most billionaires never achieve, not financial wealth. Something far more valuable. They built the ability to design their own reality from the inside out. And once you understand what they actually did, you'll never look at your ambitions the same way again. For centuries, Tibetan Buddhist monks practiced something called lucid dreaming. But that word doesn't do it justice. What they were doing wasn't just becoming aware inside a dream. They were using the dream state as a training ground, a laboratory, a place to rehearse courage, sharpen the mind, and dissolve the fears that kept them small in waking life. They called it dream yoga, and it was treated as seriously as any waking discipline. Think about what that means for a moment. While the rest of the world saw sleep as a pause in life, these monks saw it as more life. 8 hours every night that most people waste completely, they turned into 8 hours of intentional practice. That's the first thing that should stop you cold. How much of your life are you treating as a pause? Because most people sleepwalk through more than just their nights. They sleepwalk through Monday mornings and Tuesday afternoons. They drift through conversations, through meals, through years. And then one day they wake up not from sleep, but from a long numbness, and they ask themselves what happened to all that time. The monks asked a different question. They asked, what can I do with this moment that most people would never even think to try? Here's what the practice actually looked like. A monk would go to sleep with a specific intention held firmly in mind. Not a vague wish, a clear, vivid, deliberate focus. They trained themselves to recognize when they were dreaming, and once they did, they would use that dream state to face their deepest fears. Heights, loss, death, failure. Things that would paralyze the mind when awake could be confronted in the dream, where the consequences were safe, but the emotional experience was completely real. Neuroscience has since confirmed what those monks knew intuitively. The brain cannot fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. The same neural pathways fire, the same emotional responses are triggered, the same patterns get reinforced or dissolved. So when a monk spent years rehearsing calm in the face of chaos, rehearsing compassion in the face of anger, rehearsing clarity in the face of fear, he wasn't just dreaming, he was literally rewiring himself. That's not mysticism, that's engineering. And here's where it gets personal for you. You have a mind that does this too. Every night, whether you intend it or not, your brain is processing, rehearsing, reinforcing the patterns you fed it during the day. Most people fill that input with anxiety, comparison, and distraction. The monks filled it with intention. The question is, what are you feeding yours? If this is landing for you, hit subscribe right now, because we come back to questions like this every week, and the people who stay in this conversation are the ones who actually change. Now let's talk about the wealth part, because that word is doing something important in this story. One of the most documented cases in modern research on dream yoga comes from the work of scholars studying the Bon tradition, the pre-Buddhist spiritual lineage of Tibet. Practitioners who spent years in this discipline showed measurable changes, greater emotional regulation, stronger focus, an almost eerie calm under pressure. And one thing that surprised the researchers most, a dramatically heightened ability to pursue long-term goals without being derailed by short-term discomfort. That last one is everything. Think about every goal you've abandoned. Think about every habit you started and stopped. Think about the business idea you talked yourself out of, the conversation you avoided, the version of yourself you glimpsed once and then let go. What stopped you wasn't lack of information. You knew what to do. What stopped you was the emotional experience of discomfort, the fear, the doubt, the moment where it got hard and your nervous system said retreat. The monks had trained that response out of themselves, not by suppressing it, by meeting it over and over in the safe space of the dream until it lost its power. That is wealth. That is the most bankable asset a human being can possess. The ability to stay in motion when everything inside you is screaming to stop. Consider what someone like that could build. In business, in relationships, in creative work, in any domain that requires showing up consistently when it's uncomfortable, which is every domain worth entering. This isn't just ancient history. Modern high performers are circling back to these same principles through different doors. Athletes use visualization that mirrors the brain activity of actual performance. Surgeons mentally rehearse complex procedures before they pick up a scalpel. Executives use deliberate mental simulation to prepare for high-stakes negotiations. They're all doing a version of what those monks were doing. They're engineering their inner state before the outer moment arrives. But here's what nobody tells you. You don't need a monastery. You don't need years of silent retreat. You need one thing that the monks had, and most people don't. Intention before you close your eyes. Tonight, before you fall asleep, take 60 seconds, not scrolling, not reviewing your worries. 60 seconds, where you hold a clear picture of the person you're trying to become. The version of you that handles fear with grace. That stays the course. That shows up fully. Hold that image. Feel what it feels like to already be that person. Let that be the last thing your brain receives before it goes to work without you. Do that every night for 30 days. Then, look at how you move through your days. You didn't come this far to drift. You didn't survive everything you've survived to sleepwalk through the rest of it. The monks knew something simple and staggering, that the mind is not a fixed thing. It's a practice. And every hour of every day, including the ones you spend asleep, you are either practicing the person you want to become, or the one you're afraid you already are. Starting right now tonight, this moment you choose which one gets your attention.